So now, without further ado, I am going to introduce one of my great professional friends, a stellar human being, a fabulous singer, a wonderful choral conductor, and a magnificent and accomplished Alexander technician, Megan Johnson, who is the director of the Indianapolis Women's Chorus and a 3,000-hour certified Alexander technician. Megan, I'm going to spotlight you, and you can take it away. Megan is our one of our wellness partners for this cycle, so that we nurture your spirit and your voice and your body and your mind. And so Megan is here to bring us a little beauty.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much, Dan. I think that's the most wonderful introduction I've ever received. Can you hear me well enough? I've adjusted my mic a million times today. Little up, little up. Is that better?
Good. Yes, that sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, great. Sorry, like you, I have been teaching on Zoom. I have been recording on my computer and trying to adjust levels for all of those things. So thanks for helping with that. I am going to ask how many of you out there in virtual Zoom land, would you raise a hand if you know about the Alexander technique from having private lessons in Alexander technique? Yes, classes? Anyone take an Alexander class? Any other certified teachers in the house? Just always like to ask. Maybe? All right. Good. So the Alexander technique, you probably have heard of it. Yeah, because it is so incredibly useful for vocalists, so incredibly helpful for people from all performance backgrounds, as well as just taking care of our bodies in everyday life. And Alexander technique is taught sometimes in many different ways. So I wanted to start with just the way that I understand and teach the Alexander technique. I view it as a discipline of embodied mindfulness. It's not about posture, although posture is a side effect of the Alexander work. But this embodied mindfulness discipline, it's been used by performers for over a century. It's studied by people who wish to relieve chronic pain, who wish to reduce their stress, improve their freedom of movement. And we have 3 goals that Dan and I discussed today that we're going to talk about. First, your posture, the way you use your body as it relates to singing, being in front of a computer, working at a computer, for your day job, anything you're doing at the computer. Second, mindful voice usage when working with mics or in virtual environments. That's a big one these days. And third, how we can use our bodies in a way to effectively process the stress of this particular moment in our world, the pandemic, the politics, the racial concerns that we're all dealing with and aware of, how we can release that from our bodies so that we can move forward and do good work in the world. Before I launch into my presentation, and I think we said about 45 minutes, is that right? I'm seeing Dan's hand.
I'm sorry, I was having
You're on.
no longer than.
Correct. Okay, great. Great. Thank you. All right, so I have 3 practices I'm going to teach you and 1 that will come in a follow-up message to you to use on your own. But are there any burning questions that you've like, the next time I meet an Alexander technique teacher, I really need to know the answer to this question? Does anybody have one of those questions? If so, please, I don't know, can you raise your blue hands? Is that a thing in this particular Zoom meeting? No burning questions? Okie doke. All right, we will just launch in then. So the first thing that we start from in the Alexander work is that mind and body are not separate. There's not even a mind-body connection. In fact, they are the same thing. And the more that psychology and neuroscience evolves, the more we learn from fields like embodied cognition and somatic psychology that our mind and our bodies really are truly integrated and the same thing. So we're going to do a quick thought experiment, and then I will ask you to offer your observations of yourself from this thought experiment. The first, I'm going to give you a phrase, and I'm going to ask you to think it to yourself 3 times in your own mind, or since we're all on Zoom, you're welcome to say it out loud to yourself with your mic off. And the first phrase is, I have to do it right, and I have to do it fast. What happens to you in your body, in your thinking, in your emotions, when you say to yourself a couple times, I have to do it right, and I have to do it fast? Say that a couple of times and notice what you notice. All right. So who has an observation? Yeah, we're getting some interesting stuff in the chat. Tension. My stomach is clenching. Don't love that. Stress. Would anybody like to offer a verbal observation? Raise your blue hand if so. Ooh, fingertips started prickling. I can't see all the screens, but I do see Ginny Coleman.
So for me personally, it was just blood rushing and stress. So like I could feel like the stress going through like my fingertips and like my heart racing a little bit doing that.
Thanks. Yeah. Feel my back, my heart accelerates. I'm reading in the chat. Ooh, reminds me of work. Yeah. So for how many of you is this sort of a familiar thought process? I have to do it right and I have to do it fast. You can raise real hands. Yeah, nodding. This feels familiar. Okay, I don't want to leave anybody in that state. So we're going to do the opposite thought exploration. The opposite phrase is, I'm at ease in myself and I have the time I need. What's your response when you think to yourself, I'm at ease in myself and I have the time I need? Try that a couple of times. Oh, wow. These are some awesome observations in the chat. Would anyone like to offer a verbal observation? If you're following in the chat, shoulders are relaxing, verbal exhale. I see Samantha's blue hand. Was that for real?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome.
My first thought was, oh man, I never say that phrase. Because the first one, it was an immediate reaction. This one, I have to like sit with it because it's not a familiar thought at all. So it's taking longer to react to it or decompress from it.
Yeah. Thank you for offering that. Yeah. So it feels a little less familiar to you. And so it takes a little bit more time. Yeah. We type A folks aren't used to that thought, says Dan in the chat. Yeah, it might be unfamiliar for some of you, but I'm going to ask, you know about singing, you know about performing. If you had to take the aggregate of clenched stomach muscles, tense, stressed out, and I'm in fight or flight mode, versus my shoulders are relaxed, I feel expansive, I feel acceptance, I'm connected to the lower part of my body, which one would you choose for singing? The first one or the second one? Second one, option 2. And those side effects are associated with the thought process, I'm at ease in myself and I have time. So as you're going through to this evening's workshop, and then I understand you have a sectional coming after or some sort of rehearsal coming after, I'm going to invite you to use that phrase, I have time, liberally, to apply it. If you are working on, I'm going to name a random measure 17, and it's just not coming together. Instead of putting your horns down and getting that measure correct, would you say, I'm at ease in myself and I have time, and then go on to working on it and see what you notice. is almost magic, I can promise you. So the second thing we're going to do is explore the other way, right? So we were just exploring how what's going on in our thinking directly affects our body. Let's see what happens when we allow our body to directly affect our state of mind, our state of being, our emotional state. So how many of you, when you were first instructed in singing, were given instruction in correct posture for singing? Yeah. Anybody who has their video camera on, and even if you don't have it on, you can do this too. Would you show me good singing posture? This is always really interesting. All right. So what did everybody do? Can somebody describe? Yes, sitting, or some of you stood. You were like, I'm gonna really get my good singing posture. What did you see? You can release out of that because we're just listening right now. Ah, what did you see? You stopped slouching, shoulders back, sat up straight. Okay. Edge of the chair, straight back. Right. And you are very accomplished and experienced singers. So you know your body, you know how to make this work. But I'm going to tell you something that I want you to take to heart, even if you don't believe it. There is no such thing as a right position. There is no such thing as a right position, but there is a right direction. There's no such thing as a right position, but there is a right direction. So we're going to play with a practice that I've been developing that I call orienting. And I use the word orienting like you have a compass and you're out in the middle of the woods and you don't know where you are, and you line your compass up with the cardinal directions, and that gets you oriented to the direction you need to go. So I'm going to ask you a series of simple questions. And I would like you to ask yourself these questions, but instead of answering them with your brain, will you let your body respond? Your brain and your body are the same. It's okay. But we're going to let the body respond rather than thinking intellectually. So here's the first set of questions. Where's the ground? Ah, good. And where's up? Yeah, just let your body answer. You don't have to show me that you're thinking about it. Just let your body answer. So where's the ground and where's up? Now, where's the space behind you? If you want to look and see how big it is, you can. And where's the space in front of you? Where's the space to your right? And where's the space to your left? Good. So now this time I'm going to ask you the same questions again, and I would like you to think about sensing these directions without looking at them. The floor will still be there whether or not you look at it. So where's the ground? And where's up? Where's the space behind you? You don't have to look, just notice. Where's the space in front of you? Where's the space to your right? And where's the space to your left? Now, whatever air is in your lungs, would you breathe it out? Don't start with an inhale, just start with whatever air is in your lungs. Breathe it out. That's the inner part of you. And then allowing the air to come in. You've met the outer. So, what are you noticing in yourself? Who feels different after getting oriented to the directions around you? Does anybody feel different? Yeah, can I ask for a couple verbal responses to that? Katie P?
I don't know how to raise my hand, but I like just feel so like into the ground and like the world around me.
Great. I see Julie DeRoma.
Yeah, it feels very like three-dimensional now, like feeling like the front and back really affected me more than the other directions too.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Julie. Other observations? I see Alicia.
like a lot of people are saying in the chat, but definitely more centered and kind of almost more focused. Like I feel like I'm here because I just figured out where everywhere else is.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%. Absolutely. And I also saw Jess, soprano Jess.
Sorry, I'm still trying to figure out how to like raise my hand via Zoom, but I'm
Good.
apparently 80. I kind of realized how off kilter I was before. Oh, thank you, Sean. Just what is right from the moment you said, "Where's the ground?" I kind of realized I was sitting at this like awkward little like on one hip, foot up, crossed over angle. I'm like, oh wow, just allowing myself to be grounded made a huge difference.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So this process of orienting, it takes us into 3 dimensions, just as someone mentioned a moment ago. It's down and up. There's that dimension. It's back and front, that dimension, and side to side, that dimension, as well as inner and outer. So up and down, back and front, side to side, inner and outer. And you can use this in any moment. When you are standing on that bridge and singing on Friday, you're going, wow, it's really weird that I'm standing on a bridge and it's kind of chilly and this mask is comfortable or uncomfortable, however I feel. Where's the ground? Where's up? Where's the space behind me? Where's the space in front of me? Where's the space to my right? Where's the space to my left? Where's my space inner? Breathe out. And where's the space outer? It returns. I see soprano Laura has a hand up. Is that from before? Maybe she was just testing. No. Okay.
It might have been before.
Okay, that's fine.
but yeah, it is very much that feeling of feeling grounded, almost very steadfast. That you spend so much time thinking about breathing. Sometimes you worry that there's all of this air, but then to have the context of your surroundings and the ground that roots you.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Laura. So the practices that I'm teaching today, you can use them for singing, sure. But the place that and that's a good question. I will answer your question, Katie, at the end, I hope. Remind me if I don't. The place in the world where I see this work starting to evolve and grow outside of, performers, you're many of you already familiar with Alexander technique. The place where I see this growing is the difficult challenges of reconciliation and understanding, and the uncomfortable work of dismantling oppressive systems in our world. And so the next time you find yourself in a place that is uncomfortable, I invite you to stay with that uncomfortableness and ask yourself, where's the ground and where's up? And where's the space behind me? Where's the space in front of me? Ask yourself to get oriented so that you can really be, all these words you've said, grounded, centered, steadfast, present, here with the situation that you're in. I'm going to give a quick shout out for a book that has totally changed my life. My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem. If anyone has heard of Mr. Menakem, he is a trauma therapist in Minneapolis, a Black man who has been working at this edge of racialized trauma and how to mend and heal our bodies and our hearts. So I learn a lot from him, and he has some wonderful body practices to do in there. So now we're going to take this directional thing into the space around you. So if you're able, as you're able, some of you may be tethered to your computers, but if you're not, would you please stand as you're able? And we're just going to walk around the space. And if you're choosing or needing to sit, you can do the same thing sitting, but just walk around the space. And I'll ask you, did those 3 dimensions come with you? No, I wondered. Yeah. So pause wherever you are. Just listen to me from wherever you are. And think, where's the ground? And where's up? Where's the space behind me? Where's the space in front of me? Where's the space to my right? Where's the space to my left? I exhale the air from my lungs, which is from the center of me. And I allow the air from the world to come in, which meets the outer. Now, can you walk and take that directional space with you? Just go for a little walk. Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Keep walking. If you've decided to sit, I encourage you, you can play with rocking forward and back in your chair and see if, can you reach something in front of you? Can you interact with your computer or reach for something near you while keeping those directions going? Yeah, can you move as you're able in your space while still thinking of your directions? All right, walkers, come on back to your chairs, please. And keep your directions with you while you decide to retake your seat as you wish. All right, any brief observations about walking? You can drop them in the chat. You can raise your hand on mute. Tamara, please, or Tamara. Alto 2, Tamara?
Yeah, I also have to find the unmute button.
Great.
I was thinking that it is interesting that, or I was wondering what is the causality here, because I feel like when I want to keep the space, I have to walk upright. I have to kind of, you know, use my core muscles. I have to consciously move my arms. So is it a, you know, where's the start, where's the end here?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. So it's a cycle, right? That as you think these directions, it causes changes in how you use your body. And the way that you use your body influences the way you experience the directions. And it's this wonderful positive feedback loop within you that helps you adapt to any movement situation or any emotional or mental situation. Was that enough of an answer, or was that like a super like professorial, oh, it's both? Okay, all right. Dan, I see your hand.
Yeah, I also just realized I can't figure out how to raise my hand after making fun of Jess. So, yeah. So what I noticed is that my awareness changed when I was in service of a goal. And so as I moved through the space with more awareness, I became, very centered. And then I realized I went on a run earlier and my back's a little stiff. And I was like, oh, I'm going to grab my roller ball, so that I can roll on my spine. And as soon as I was like, where is that? I realized that my awareness of the room narrowed and I became essentially like I just existed with binoculars on my face. And I was not aware of all the other things. So maintaining awareness while in service of a goal seems to be something that I would need to work on if I were studying this longer term.
Absolutely. That's a great observation. Thanks for sharing that. And there's actually a very fundamental principle of the Alexander technique that relates to being goal-oriented. And so here's your tiny Alexander history lesson. The Alexander technique is named after Frederick Matthias Alexander, who was an actor originally. He was born in 1869 in Tasmania, Australia, and passed away in 1955 in London. He was an actor who performed one-person shows, and he found after getting his career going that he would lose his voice in the middle of these one-person shows, which was no good given that there was no one else to back up. So he developed this technique as a way to cure his own chronic hoarseness. And he was able to cure this chronic hoarseness, this losing of his voice, but he didn't do it in the way you might expect. So first he realized that he had a pattern of tension that he used anytime he spoke. And that pattern of tension was causing the voice loss. When he tried to fix that pattern of tension by saying, oh, if I'm pulling my head back, I'll just push it forward. That was just one tension stacked on top of another tension. It did not actually improve anything. What he found is that that pattern of tension was associated with the very idea of speech itself, especially performance speech. And he had to learn to what he called say no to or inhibit his goal. His goal was to speak, and he could not relearn how to speak while wanting to speak. What he eventually learned to do was to put this process of thinking of his body in space and thinking of the use of the different parts of his body all together, and then addressing his goal. But the goal was always secondary to the use of his body and the use of his mind. And only in that way was he able to regain not only the free use of his voice, but to improve the use of his voice and then train others to do so. So Dan, or anyone else who has a goal, I will invite you the next time you find yourself doing that. If we, I could spend 90 minutes on each of these points here. So we're just trying to do a little bit tonight. The next time you have a goal, like I'm going to go pick up that rollerball, I'm going to go get my repertoire folder from across the room. As you notice yourself having that goal, notice if you get ready for action. Do you prepare for action? And if you do, say, nope, I have time. And give yourself some directions and then go for your goal. You can apply this, oh, it's measure 37 and I have to sing a high A or I have to sing a low G. I'd better get ready. No, don't get ready. Just pause, say, I have time. And stay in that directional process of yourself. That's really where the sort of physical work of this comes in. Yeah, that was a great observation, a little tangent for this evening that really, I think, still gets to the major points of what we're doing here. Yes, Jess.
Hi, so if this is a question that's going to kind of take us too far off the rails, I'd be happy to contact you later. I'm just curious. So I am a music teacher and private voice instructor. So let's say, like, if we're trying to hit the high A, as you said, if we, I'm so used to coming in with that mindset of, like, especially if you're going from like particularly low note in your range to a high note right away, having that prep time to be able to set the placement, set the intention. How do you balance that with this technique?
That is a really complex response that maybe if we have a time to chat later, we can. But what I'll tell the rest, what I'll say to the whole group in general is that it's not that you don't prepare. It's how you prepare. Do you prepare by, many singers I know, especially, people who are trying to sing a high note, they might grip their back and pull their shoulders up and get ready to, I'm gonna sing that high note, right? All of that is way too much work. Nobody needs that. But the preparation that would be, I'm going to allow my feet to be on the floor so that my back can widen, so that as the air returns, my diaphragm lowers, and then I'll allow my neck to be free so that as I engage my air on the way out, I create space and think above, and then I sing a beautiful high note. But that can happen all at once with no preparation as we often consider it. I was just working this morning with a couple of graduate students at IU Jacobs School, where I teach Alexander technique. I'm virtual there right now. And we were doing exactly this. Can you sing it without getting ready? And they were like, oh, wow, that was easier and it sounded better. So yeah, so it's an interesting topic. But given that we only have about 10 minutes left, I want to teach you, let's see. I want to teach you one of my favorite functional anatomy points, which is the place where your head balances on top of your spine. So would you all take 2 fingers and put them in the hollows behind your ears? If your fingers could meet in the middle, my fingers are like right here behind my earlobes in that little hollow between my skull and my jaw and my ear. If my fingers could meet in the middle like this, that is where my skull balances on top of my spine. Can you nod your head yes from up there? Yeah, good. It's way up there. Yeah. So when we are thinking about singing, when we're thinking about our emotional wellness, when we're thinking about running for exercise, when we're going to pick up a heavy box, the first place I'll invite you to think is, there's space in my neck. My neck is free, or I invite some quiet to my neck. I'm going to ask the person who noticed fight or flight when you did the, I have to do it right and I have to do it fast. Do you know who you are? Did you notice your neck in that moment? Whoever it was, go ahead.
Yeah, that was me. And yes.
What was happening with your neck in that moment?
It was tensing.
Mm-hmm.
Right in the back at the base of the skull where that lizard brain resides. It just sort of freezing up, and I felt like there was less fluidity, less movement available to me.
Thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that observation. So in all vertebrate creatures, to my knowledge, and I'm not a biologist, so please correct me if I'm wrong, that fight or flight response is associated with something we might call a startle pattern. If there's a loud noise, something falls and you jump, what do? This, right? Or if any of you with your marvelous, beautiful pets and they encounter, say, something really terrifying like the vacuum cleaner, what do? They do this too, right? Or a bigger animal or something. That tightening of the head and neck is a part of our protective response that's associated with the fight or flight response. If we want to release ourselves out of fight or flight, or even just release ourselves out of tension, the first place we go is that head and neck, to allow the space between the skull and the top of the spine to have ease, to have quiet. So I'm going to teach you a breathing exploration. Do we have 10 minutes? Is that about where we are? Okay, great. So whatever air is in your lungs, I'll invite you just to notice the air going out of your nose and coming back in your nose. Notice as you're breathing, can you allow some space at that head and neck? And if you are a person who, if you notice that you're trying to do something with your breath, because maybe you've studied yoga, or maybe you're thinking about how you're supposed to breathe for singing, you can just leave that aside for right now. We're just going to think of allowing the breath to go out and the breath to come back in. That's great. All right, so then at the end of one of those exhales, well, actually, I'll invite you to lengthen one of those exhales. Just let the exhale become a little longer than the inhale. Let the exhale become a little longer than the inhale. And if you notice that you're pushing or starting to effort, then just do less. If it makes you yawn, that probably means that your body is happily getting some more oxygen. Yay, oxygen. We like oxygen, yeah. And then at the end of one of those lengthened exhales, I'll invite you to pause and wait. To pause and breathe. Can I ask you not to be in the chat right now? To exhale and pause at the end of your breath until your breath wants to return. And then let it in. And then whatever air is in your lungs, let it out through your nose. And at the end of that exhale, would you pause and wait? Your nervous system is really smart. It knows when you need that air. Then allow the air to come in. Now think of something funny. Open your jaw and whisper ah. Then allow your lips to close. Let the breath come in. Think of something funny. Allow the jaw to release and whisper ah. Let the breath return. And then just go back to your normal breathing. All right, so this is called the whispered ah, and I taught you the 3-minute version rather than the 10-minute version. But I use whispered ah for lots of things. I use it for getting ready to sing. It really, when I started doing whispered ah at the beginning of my vocalizing or when I'm getting ready to sing, it changed everything. Getting good open breath flow going, as you know, is a key to having the kind of sound that you desire. I also use it when I'm stressed out. You might have noticed that a little voice from over here just came in and asked me if he could play Angry Birds on his iPad. He's 10. And so I use whispered ah as a parent. I use it as a person in this world dealing with, I cannot believe that so-and-so just said that, or what is going on in that politics, or what is going, I mean, it just helps me get centered. The third place where I use it is I use it when I'm resistant to wherever I am. I don't know about you, but there are some days where I just don't want to go to work. I would rather not show up to rehearsal. I would rather not show up to class. I would much rather stay in my comfy pajamas, although I mean, Zoom land, I can just wear my pajama pants and this is still stretchy, so it's almost the same. But same difference. If I'm resistant to what I'm doing, I make myself do a few whispered ahs. And what I find is that mental emotional resistance goes away, or it becomes at least a little bit lighter, which allows me to go forward and do the work that I need to do. So whispered ah, my neck is free, asking about orienting in space, and I have time. Those are, I told you 3, but they're actually 4. Whispered ah, my neck is free, thinking about myself in space, and I have time. If I gave you a little box, and I'll put these in an email or something that we can pass along if you like, these would be in the little box that I keep in my bag with me all the time, or in my back pocket, because they don't take up any space. And
Megan, would you say that one more time? Would you say that one more time?
Whispered ah, my neck is free, thinking of myself in space, that orienting, and then I have time. I'm at ease in myself and I have time. So now I'm going to ask you all, because the chat is fun. I know the chat is fun. Would you all type something in the chat and think of your direction while you're typing something in the chat? Or you can do a whispered ah while you're typing something. Thank you, David, who just typed something in the chat. I salute you. Excellent. Great. Everybody's practicing directing yourself. What do you notice in your body? Are you interacting differently with your computer? When you are thinking of your direction in space, there is space in front of me. There's space behind me. There's space to either side of me. All right. So now I'm going to invite you, don't do it right now, but the next time that you open a news app or the next time that you turn on NPR or whatever news you listen to, start with my neck is free and maybe whisper an ah and get oriented in that space. And see how that changes your attachment to what you read. See how it might change your response to what you read or what you hear. Next time you're at work, and work is however it is, it's that day, get oriented in space, release some air. Here's a fun fact. Nobody even has to know that you're doing a whispered ah. I like to do them when I'm walking on stage. So you can do that. Here I'm walking on stage. Right? Nobody knew that I was doing a whispered ah. It happened. It was fine. And it helped me stay centered in myself. Yes, you've seen me do that, Dan. So you can use these at any moment. You go, oh my goodness, what's happening? This is not what the plan was. Wait, I have time. And that time doesn't have to be any longer than half a second. And that time is going to give you many, many, many choices. What we're doing here is we're creating a little space between the stimulus, which is the news, or the thing that changes plans, or your work, or the computer, and your response. And some of you may know the famous quote attributed to Viktor Frankl, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in that choice lies our growth and our freedom. So being able to take that space, create that space, or recognize that that space is there to choose your response will give you an infinity of possibility. And that sounds pretty good to me. So thank you. Yeah, we're at 7:30, so I know you have a rehearsal to get onto. I would be delighted to chat with any of you if you have follow-up questions, if you're a voice teacher or a singer and you want to know, I have a specific question and you really want to know, I'm happy to talk with you. I'll make sure that some of these resources I mentioned will get to you. Dan is going to send some contact information. And yeah, thank you so much for having me, and best wishes with all of your performances and rehearsals this season. I really admire what you're all doing.
Thank you so much. I'm going to remove the spotlight on Megan. And I want to kind of add here with Alexander Technique and Music, I notice a link between the idea of space. So there's a quote that music is the space between the notes, which is attributed to Debussy, but I know it from Miles Davis, right? The jazz trumpeter. And this is really how I see the way we make music, is in that beautiful pause after the fermata, right? So let's take Megan's ideas, or these wonderful ideas from Alexander Technique, into our rehearsal this evening. And we have a decent amount to accomplish, but we have fabulous music captains who are going to lead you through your sectionals. You're going to do all or part of each piece tonight, and then you'll return to me and Scotty for some announcements and a final sing through of all the rep before we see you in person next week at the Warsaw Theater. And if you have any questions for Megan, we're going to send out her contact information in our next singer communication. Thank you again, Megan.